Alpha King Damien Blackthorne. 6'4" of pure dominance. Eyes like storm clouds, gray and unpredictable and dangerous. The kind of man who walks into a room and the air itself bends to acknowledge him. Powerful doesn't even begin to describe it. When he moved, people moved. When he spoke, people listened. When he wanted something, he took it. And that day, he looked at me. Please, I would like you to tell me your name, the city you're watching from in the comment below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up.
Me.
Elena Frost. Nobody. Nothing. An orphan girl who'd been taken in by the pack out of charity. I worked in the kitchens. I scrubbed floors. I kept my head down and my mouth shut because that's what girls like me did if we wanted to survive.
But he looked at me.
And he said the words. You are my mate. Just like that. For words. For simple words that were supposed to change everything. The entire room went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. A feather. A heartbeat. My heartbeat, which was thundering so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. The other pack members stared.
Some gasped.
Others whispered. The beta Marcus, his name was Marcus, he actually took a step back like he'd been struck. Because alpha kings don't get mates like me. They get princesses. Daughters of other alphas. Women bred for power and politics and alliances. Women with names that mean something. Bloodlines that trace back centuries. Not kitchen maids. Not me. But the moon goddess. She doesn't care about what makes sense, does she? She doesn't consult anyone. She doesn't ask permission. She just decides. And apparently, she decided that the most powerful alpha in 5 territories would be mated to the girl who peeled his potatoes.
Crazy, right?
I remember standing there, frozen. My worn dress, the gray one with the patched hem, suddenly felt like it was made of lead. My hands were still damp from washing dishes. I probably smelled like onions and dish soap. And here was this man, this king, telling me I was his mate. I waited for it. The bond. You know what I'm talking about if you're part of this world. The mate bond. That supernatural pull. That click. That moment when everything falls into place and you just know. When you can feel them. Sense them. When your wolf recognizes their wolf and it's like coming home. I waited. I waited for my heart to sing. For my wolf to howl with joy. For that electric current everyone talks about. The one that's supposed to run through your veins the moment you lock eyes with your destined mate. I waited. But nothing. Oh, there was something. Don't get me wrong. When he looked at me, I felt warm.
There was this tiny flutter in my chest.
This whisper of maybe. Like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. Like the very first hint of sunrise before dawn breaks. But it wasn't the explosion I'd heard about. It wasn't the overwhelming, undeniable, all-consuming recognition that's supposed to happen when true mates meet. It was just quiet, and I could see it in his eyes. He felt it too. Or rather, he didn't feel what he was supposed to feel.
His jaw tightened.
That muscle in his cheek twitched, the one that appears when he's angry or frustrated or disappointed. His eyes, those storm gray eyes, they darkened. Clouded over. Like shutters closing. You are my mate, he said again. But this time it sounded different. This time it sounded like an accusation. A problem.
A mistake.
I opened my mouth. I don't even know what I was going to say. Thank you? I'm sorry? What are you supposed to say when fate chooses you but the bond doesn't ignite? But I didn't get the chance. He turned to Marcus. Prepare the guest quarters. She'll need a room. A room. Not his room. Not the Luna's chambers. A guest room. Marcus nodded, but he looked confused. Everyone looked confused. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. When an alpha finds his mate, there's a ceremony. A marking. A celebration. The bond is sealed immediately, publicly, irrevocably. But Damien just stood there, looking at me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. A problem he didn't want to deal with. You'll be taken care of, he said. His voice was formal, distant, like he was speaking to a stranger, which I suppose I was. You'll have everything you need, everything I need. What I needed was for him to explain what was happening. What I needed was to understand why the bond wasn't working. What I needed was for him to look at me the way a maid is supposed to look at his other half. What I needed was for this to make sense. But he was already walking away. Already moving on to the next matter of state. Already dismissing me. Just like that. One of the Omegas, Hannah, I think her name was, she came and took my elbow. Gentle.
Kind.
Come on, dear, she whispered. Let's get you settled. Settled. I let her lead me out of the grand hall. I could feel the eyes on me.
Hundreds of them.
Judging. Wondering.
Pitching.
Some filled with envy because I'd been chosen by the Alpha King. Others filled with pity because clearly something was wrong. The guest room was nice. Too nice. Bigger than anywhere I'd ever slept. A real bed with a quilted comforter. Windows that overlooked the gardens. A private bathroom. Someone will bring you dinner, Hannah said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes.
Rest.
I'm sure the Alpha will send for you soon. She left. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. Rough hands. Calloused from work. The nails short and uneven. Not the hands of a Luna. I waited for him to send for me. I waited all night. He didn't. The next morning, I woke up confused. Disoriented. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came rushing back. The announcement. The bond that wasn't. The guest room. I got dressed in the same clothes I'd been wearing. I didn't have anything else, and stepped out into the hallway. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Was I supposed to wait? Was I supposed to go find him? Was there some kind of protocol for half-rejected mates? I wandered until I found the dining hall. It was massive. Long tables that could seat 100 people. But it was empty except for few servants setting up for breakfast. And then he walked in.
Damien.
My breath caught. I couldn't help it. Mate or not, bond or not, he was magnificent. Dressed in black. Always black. It made him look even more powerful. More untouchable. He saw me. Our eyes met. And again I felt it. That whisper. That maybe. My wolf stirred, reaching out tentatively toward him. But his expression didn't change. He nodded.
Once.
Barely perceptible. Then he sat at the head of the table and started reviewing papers that Marcus handed him. I stood there like an idiot. Waiting. Hoping. He didn't invite me to sit. After what felt like an eternity, I turned to leave. I was almost at the door when his voice stopped me. Elena. I spun around. Hope bloomed in my chest like a flower in spring. Yes, Alpha? He didn't look up from his papers. The kitchen is short-staffed. They could use help with the morning meal preparation. I blinked. The kitchen? I thought. I mean, since I'm your mate, the bond hasn't fully manifested. His voice was flat. Emotionless. Until it does, you'll need something to occupy your time. I'm told you're experienced in the kitchen. Something to occupy my time. My hands started shaking. I clasped them together to hide it. Of course, Alpha. My voice came out small. Broken. Good. Report to the head cook. She'll give you your assignments. Assignments? He went back to his papers. I left. I made it halfway down the hallway before the tears started. I ducked into an alcove and pressed my palms against my eyes. I would not cry. I would not. But here's the thing nobody tells you about the mate bond. Even when it's incomplete, even when it's not fully ignited, it still affects you. I could feel him. Not strongly, but enough. Enough to sense his indifference. His disappointment. His regret. Enough to know that he didn't want me. The moon goddess chose me for him, but he chose to put me in the kitchen. I reported to the head cook, a stern woman named Martha, who ran her kitchen like a military operation. She looked me up and down, pursed her lips, and put me to work. Chop these, she said, pointing to a mountain of vegetables. And don't dawdle. The Alpha likes his breakfast at exactly 7.
The Alpha.
Not my mate. Not my other half. Not my future.
The Alpha.
I chopped vegetables. I stirred pots. I plated food that I would never be invited to eat at his table. And that's how it started. Day after day. Week after week. Month after month. I lived in the pack house. I had that nice guest room. I had clothes now, simple ones but clean and new. I had food. I had shelter. I had everything I needed. Except him. Except the bond. Except the life I was supposed to have. The other Omegas, they were kind enough. They didn't understand, but they tried. Sometimes they'd whisper about how strange it all was. How the Alpha had found his mate, but never marked her. Never claimed her. Never even acknowledged her in public. I became a ghost in his house. I saw him, of course. Every day. He'd walk past the kitchen sometimes. He'd sit in the dining hall for state dinners. Occasionally, late at night, I'd catch a glimpse of him in the gardens, standing alone, staring up at the moon. And every time I saw him, my wolf would whimper, reach out, try to connect to the bond that should have been there. And every time, he'd look right through me, like I wasn't there, like I didn't matter. 6 months passed, then a year. No kiss, no mark, no ceremony, just an apron, just the kitchen, just this half-life where I was chosen but not wanted, mated but not loved, destined but not claimed. Do you know what that does to a person? To be so close to what you're supposed to have but never allowed to touch it? To see your mate every day and know that he wishes you were someone else? Something else? It breaks you. Slowly. Piece by piece. But here's what I learned in that first year. Broken things can still be sharp. Broken things can still cut. And broken things can learn to survive on their own. I stopped waiting for him to send for me. I stopped hoping that today would be the day the bond fully ignited. I stopped believing in fairy tales. Instead, I chopped vegetables. I perfected my knife skills. I learned every recipe in Martha's vast repertoire. I discovered I was actually good at it, cooking, creating, taking simple ingredients and turning them into something beautiful, something nourishing, something that mattered, even if I didn't. And late at night, alone in my too nice guest room, I'd lie in bed and stare at the ceiling and wonder what the moon goddess was thinking when she paired us. What was the point? What was I supposed to learn from this? What was he supposed to learn? I didn't have answers. All I had was an apron, and a mate who treated me like I was nothing, less than nothing, a mistake.
So yeah,
Have you ever been chosen, only to be forgotten?
I have.
And let me tell you something, it's a special kind of torture. The kind that doesn't leave marks you can see. The kind that happens quietly, day after day, until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because this story, it gets so much worse before it gets better. And that first year, that was just the beginning. Episode 2. 3 years.
3 whole
years. Do you know what it's like to cook for a man who won't even look you in the eye? Let me paint you a picture. It's been 3 years now.
3 whole
years. 1,095 days of waking up in a house where I'm supposed to belong but don't. Of walking hallways where I'm supposed to be Luna but aren't. Of preparing meals for a mate who can't even be bothered to acknowledge my existence. 3 years. People ask me sometimes, well, they used to ask before they learned to just not talk about it, they'd ask how I could stand it. How I could live like this. How I could stay. And you know what? I asked myself the same thing. Every single
day.
But here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Where was I supposed to go? The mate bond, incomplete as it was, it still existed. Still tethered me to him. Still made it physically painful to think about leaving. My wolf, sweet, hopeful, pathetic thing, she still believed. Still waited. Still longed for the day he'd finally see us. And me? I was practical. I had food, shelter, safety. In a world where Omegas like me were vulnerable, where rogues roamed and packs could be cruel, I had protection. Even if that protection came with the price of my dignity. Even if it meant becoming invisible. So I stayed. And I cooked. Oh, did I cook? By year 2, I'd become indispensable in the kitchen. Martha had retired, her arthritis had gotten too bad, and somehow, without anyone officially deciding it, I'd taken over as head cook. The Alpha's personal chef. The irony wasn't lost on me. I couldn't be his Luna. Couldn't sit at his table. Couldn't wear his mark. But I could season his steak exactly how he liked it. I could make his coffee strong and black with just a hint of cinnamon. I could bake the honey oat bread that he ate every morning without fail. I knew his preferences better than I knew my own. That's what 3 years of watching someone from the shadows will do. You learn them. You memorize them. Every habit. Every preference. Every tiny detail. I knew he took his meetings in the morning, so breakfast had to be ready at exactly 6:45. I knew he trained with the Warriors at noon, so lunch was always high protein, easy to eat quickly. I knew he worked late into the night, so there was always a pot of soup warming on the stove if he got hungry. I knew he hated onions but loved garlic. I knew he preferred white meat over dark. I knew he had a secret sweet tooth that he'd never admit to, so I'd leave small desserts in his study, nothing ostentatious, just a cookie or two, and they'd always be gone by morning. I knew him, but he didn't know me. He'd walk past the kitchen sometimes. I'd hear his footsteps in the hallway, heavy, purposeful, unmistakable, and my heart would still race. Even after 3 years. Even after 1,000 disappointments. My wolf would perk up, hopeful and stupid, and I'd find myself pausing whatever I was doing. Waiting. Just in case today was the day he'd stop.
Come in. Say something.
Anything. He never did. Sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, our eyes would meet. In a hallway. Across the dining hall. Once, memorably, in the garden when I was picking herbs and he was returning from a run. And in those moments, I'd feel it. That whisper of the bond. That maybe.
Stronger than it used to be, actually.
Growing, slowly, like a seed that refused to die even in barren soil. I'd see something flicker in his eyes. Something that looked almost like recognition.
Like he was about to say something.
But then his jaw would tighten. That muscle would twitch. And he'd look away. Every single
time.
Do you have any idea what that does to you? That constant rejection? That perpetual almost? It hollows you out. I stopped styling my hair. What was the point? I stopped wearing anything but my kitchen clothes. I stopped looking in mirrors because I didn't like what I saw. The dullness in my eyes, the resignation in my shoulders. I became exactly what he'd made me, a servant. But here's the thing, and pay attention because this is important. I wasn't just cooking meals. I was surviving.
Learning.
Growing stronger in ways that had nothing to do with him. The kitchen became my kingdom. My domain. The one place where I had control. Where I made the decisions. Where what I did mattered. I trained the new kitchen staff. I planned menus for state dinners. I created dishes that visiting alphas praised and requested recipes for. I turned that kitchen into the heart of the pack house, and I did it all without anyone really noticing. Because I was just the cook. Just the maid. Just his nothing. But I was also becoming someone. Someone who didn't need his validation. Someone who could stand on her own. Someone who was more than just a failed mate bond. I didn't realize it then. I was too busy surviving. Too busy keeping my head down and my hands busy. Too busy pretending my heart wasn't breaking every time he walked past without seeing me. But I was changing. And he was too busy ruling his kingdom to notice. The Blood Moon Pack was powerful, the most powerful in 5 territories.
And Damien?
He was everything an Alpha King should be. Strong. Strategic. Fair but firm. Under his leadership, the pack had grown. Prospered. Our borders had expanded. Our alliances had strengthened. He was a good king. Just a terrible mate. I watched him lead. Watched him make decisions that affected thousands of lives. Watched him command respect and loyalty from wolves who would die for him without question. And I wondered, constantly, obsessively, painfully, I wondered if the bond would have made a difference. If it had fully ignited that first day, would he be different with me? Would I be standing beside him instead of behind a stove? Or would he have found other reasons to push me away? Because let's be honest, and I had a lot of time to think about this while chopping vegetables, the bond not igniting wasn't really the problem, was it? It was an excuse. A convenient excuse. The real problem was simpler. I wasn't what he wanted. I wasn't powerful enough. Connected enough. Important enough. I was an orphan.
A nobody.
A girl with no pack, no family, no pedigree. And alpha kings don't end up with girls like me. The moon goddess might choose us, but that doesn't mean we're chosen in the ways that matter. Year 3 brought new challenges. The pack was growing, which meant more mouths to feed, more events to cater, more responsibilities piling on my shoulders. I hired more staff, expanded the kitchen, implemented new systems and schedules. I was running an operation that fed hundreds of wolves daily. I was managing budgets and inventory and supplier relationships. I was doing work that would normally fall to a high-ranking pack member. But I was still just the cook.
And Damien?
He ruled. He conquered. He made alliances and broke enemies. And he took lovers.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about that, shall we? Because that's when the real torture began. I first smelled her on him about 18 months in. Perfume, expensive, cloying, nothing like the simple soap I used. It was on his clothes when they came back from the laundry.
A scent that didn't belong.
My wolf went wild, howling, raging.
Betrayed.
But what could I do? He wasn't really mine. The bond was incomplete. We'd never been intimate, never even had a real conversation. I had no claim to him, even though he had every claim to me. That's how it works, right? The mate bond is supposed to be equal, but when it's incomplete, when it's one-sided, when one person feels it and the other doesn't, it's just chains. Beautiful, unbreakable chains. The first one, I don't even know her name. Some visiting alpha's daughter. She was gone within a week, and so was her scent. I told myself it didn't matter. Told myself I didn't care. I burned 3 batches of bread that week. The second one lasted longer. A warrior from an allied pack. Strong. Beautiful. Everything I wasn't. She'd smile at him during training sessions. I could see them from the kitchen window if I stood on my toes. She lasted a month. I stopped sleeping that month. Just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the bond stretch and ache every time he was with her. By the third one, I'd learned to numb myself. To expect it. To accept it. This is your life. I'd tell myself. This is all it will ever be. He needs an outlet. He's an alpha. A king. He has needs. And you? You're just the girl who makes his breakfast. But here's the thing about pain. Constant, relentless, grinding pain, eventually, it changes you. Hardens you. Burns away the soft parts until what's left is something different. Something stronger. Or, at least something that knows how to survive. I learned to recognize the signs. The way he'd be gone for longer periods. The way he'd return smelling like someone else. The way my wolf would whimper, and I'd have to physically restrain her from shifting, from running, from going to him and demanding what was ours by right. I learned to breathe through it, to focus on my work, to pour all that pain and rage and grief into creating the most beautiful food I could make. If I couldn't have his heart, at least I could feed his body. Pathetic, right? But it was all I had. The other Omegas pretended not to notice. Or maybe they really didn't notice. Maybe to everyone else, this was just normal. The Alpha King and his conquests. The mate who wasn't really a mate tucked away in the kitchen where she belonged. Maybe I was the only one who thought it was strange.
Wrong.
Unbearable. There were moments, rare, precious, painful moments, when I'd catch him looking at me. Really looking. Like he was trying to figure something out. Like he was on the verge of understanding something important. Those were the worst moments. Because they gave me hope. And hope, at that point, was more dangerous than despair. I remember one night, specifically. It was late. I was in the kitchen making stock for the next day, a task that took hours and had to be done overnight. The pack house was quiet. Everyone asleep. And he walked in. Just walked in. I nearly dropped the ladle I was holding. He'd never, in 3 years, he'd never come into the kitchen. Never sought me out. Never broken the careful distance he'd maintained since that first day. He stood in the doorway, barefoot, wearing just sleep pants and a t-shirt. His hair was messed up like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired. Human. Vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. "Can't sleep?" I asked. My voice came out barely above a whisper. He shook his head. looked at the pot I was stirring. What are you making? Beef stock. For tomorrow's soup. He nodded, moved further into the kitchen, leaned against the counter. My heart was hammering so hard, I was sure he could hear it. It smells good, he said. Thank you, Alpha. A pause. Long, heavy. You don't have to call me that when we're alone. I stopped stirring, looked at him, really looked at him. His eyes were on me. Storm gray and turbulent and sad? Was that sadness? What should I call you? I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it,
Shook his head.
I don't know, he finally said. The honesty of it nearly broke me. I wanted to cross the distance between us, wanted to touch him, wanted to ask all the questions that had been building up for 3 years, wanted to scream, wanted to cry, wanted to make him see me. But I didn't. I just turned back to my stock and kept stirring. We stood there in silence for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Him leaning against the counter, me stirring soup, the mate bond stretching between us like a rubber band pulled taut. Elena, he said finally. Yes. Another pause. Nothing. Never mind. He left. Just walked out. And I stood there in that empty kitchen and finally let myself cry. Really cry. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and primal and too long suppressed. I cried for the bond that should have been. For the life I should have had. For 3 years of being invisible to the one person who should have seen me most clearly. I cried until there were no tears left. And then I went back to stirring my stock. Because that's what you do when you're just the cook. When you're just the maid. When you're just his nothing. You keep going. You keep surviving. You keep hoping even though hope is the cruelest thing of all. 3 years. 3 whole years. And I was still waiting for him to choose me. Still waiting for the bond to ignite. Still waiting for my life to start. But I didn't know, I couldn't have known, that everything was about to change. That the waiting was almost over. That sometimes the bond doesn't ignite until it's forced to. And that forcing would happen in the most unexpected, devastating, perfect way possible. But that comes later. For now, I just stirred my stock and tried to remember what it felt like to hope for something more than survival. Episode 3. I smelled them on him. He came back last night.
Drunk.
Reeking of perfume and blood. But not mine. Never mine. I need you to understand something. After 3 years, I thought I'd developed immunity. I thought I'd build up walls high enough, thick enough, strong enough to protect what was left of my heart. I was wrong. Some nights, the pain is fresh as the first day.
Raw.
Bleeding. Acute. Last night was one of those nights. It started normally enough. I'd been in the kitchen late, again. We'd hosted a dinner for the visiting Northern Pac delegation, and the cleanup was extensive. By the time I'd finished, it was past midnight. The pack house was quiet.
Dark.
Everyone asleep. I was exhausted. The kind of bone-deep tired that makes your eyes burn and your movements sluggish. I wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed and let oblivion claim me for a few hours. I was walking down the corridor toward my room when I heard it. Laughter. His laughter.
Deep.
Rough. The kind of sound he makes when he's truly amused. The kind of sound I'd heard exactly 3 times in 3 years and never directed at anything I'd done. And then another laugh. Higher.
Feminine.
Playful. I should have kept walking. Should have gone to my room. Should have put my headphones in and drowned out the world, like I'd learned to do. But my feet stopped. My traitorous, stupid feet stopped moving. And I stood there in the shadows of that hallway and listened to my mate laugh with another woman. They were in his study. The door was cracked open just enough. Just enough to let the light spill out. Just enough to let the sounds carry. You're terrible, she said. Voice like honey.
Warm.
Intimate. The voice of someone who knows she's wanted. Am I? He rumbled. And I could hear the smile in his voice. The playfulness. The interest. My wolf whimpered. Clawed at my insides. Begged me to burst through that door. To claim what was ours. To fight. But I just stood there. Frozen. Listening.
Dying.
Completely terrible, she purred. And I wouldn't have you any other way. The sound of fabric rustling, movement, and then quiet. The kind of quiet that speaks volumes. The kind of quiet that tells you exactly what's happening even though you can't see it. I finally moved then. Finally forced my legs to work. Stumbled down the hallway toward my room, my hand pressed against my mouth to stifle the sounds threatening to escape. I made it inside. Closed the door. Locked it. And then I shattered. Have you ever felt your heart actually break? Not metaphorically. Actually felt it crack and splinter inside your chest? I have. I collapsed against the door and slid down until I was sitting on the floor, my knees pulled up to my chest, my whole body shaking. The bond, that cruel, incomplete bond, it was screaming. My wolf was howling. Every instinct I had was telling me to go back there, to stop what was happening, to remind him that I existed. But what would be the point? He knew I existed. He just didn't care. I don't know how long I sat there. Time had lost meaning. All I knew was pain, wave after wave of it, crashing over me, drowning me, and underneath it all was this terrible, shameful truth. I still wanted him, even knowing he was with another woman, even after 3 years of rejection, even though he'd made it abundantly clear that I meant nothing to him. I still wanted him. The mate bond doesn't care about dignity. It doesn't care about self-respect. It doesn't care that wanting someone who doesn't want you back is the most pathetic thing in the world. It just wants. I finally pulled myself together enough to get ready for bed. Went through the motions mechanically. Brushed my teeth. Washed my face. Changed into my sleep clothes. And then I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and felt the bond pulse with his emotions.
His desire.
His satisfaction. For someone else. I must have eventually fallen asleep, because I woke to sunlight streaming through my window and the realization that I had to get up and do it all over again. Had to go to the kitchen. Had to prepare his breakfast. Had to pretend I was fine. Had to survive another day. I dragged myself out of bed. Looked in the mirror. My eyes were swollen from crying. My face was pale. I looked exactly how I felt. Broken. But I splashed cold water on my face, pulled my hair back, and forced myself to move. The kitchen was my sanctuary, my refuge, the one place where I could lose myself in work and forget for a little while that my life was a nightmare. I started the coffee, mixed the dough for his honey oat bread, began preparing his eggs exactly how he liked them. The routine was soothing, familiar, safe. And then he walked in, not into the kitchen. He never came into the kitchen except for that one time, but into the dining hall. I could see him through the service window, and I could smell her on him. Perfume, expensive and floral and wrong, all over him, mixed with his scent in a way that made my wolf snarl and my stomach turn. She was with him, the woman from last night. Beautiful, of course. They always were. Tall and elegant with auburn hair and curves in all the right places. Dressed in one of his shirt, like she had every right to be there. Like she belonged. They were laughing again. Talking quietly. She reached out and touched his arm, and he didn't pull away. I gripped the edge of the counter so hard my knuckles went white.
Breathe.
Just breathe. But I couldn't breathe. The air was thick and suffocating and filled with her scent all over him. He sat at his usual spot. She sat beside him.
Close.
Too close. Closer than I'd ever been allowed to sit. And I had to watch. I had to plate his breakfast. The breakfast I'd woken up early to make, using the recipes I'd perfected over 3 years just for him, and watch another woman eat it with him. Watch them share a meal that should have been ours. I sent one of the junior cooks out with the plates. I couldn't do it. Couldn't walk out there and face them. Couldn't look at her sitting in the seat that should have been mine. Couldn't look at him looking at her the way he should have looked at me. I turned away from the service window. Focused on cleaning, on organizing, on anything that would keep my hands busy and my mind occupied. But I could still hear them. Their voices, their laughter, the comfortable intimacy of two people who actually wanted each other. "This bread is amazing," she said. "Who made it?" A pause. "The kitchen staff," he replied. Casual, dismissive. The kitchen staff. Not his mate. Not Elena. Not the girl who'd spent 3 years learning his preferences, his tastes, his desires. The kitchen staff. I felt something inside me crack. Something that had been holding together through sheer force of will.
But I didn't cry.
I'd cried enough last night. Cried enough for 3 years. Instead, I felt something else. Something cold. Something hard. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, calculating kind. The kind that settles in your bones and changes you from the inside out. I'd spent 3 years accepting this. 3 years making excuses. 3 years telling myself that maybe, someday, things would change. But they wouldn't. They never would. Because he'd made his choice.
And it wasn't me.
It would never be me. I heard them leave eventually. Heard him tell her he'd see her later. Heard her laughing response. Heard the door close. And then silence. I stood in that kitchen, my kitchen, and felt the last threads of hope finally, completely, irreversibly snap. I'd spent 3 years waiting. 3 years hoping. 3 years believing that the mate bond meant something. That fate meant something. That I meant something. But I didn't.
Not to him.
And maybe that was okay. Maybe it was time to stop waiting for him to choose me and start choosing myself. But even as I thought it, even as I felt that cold anger settle in my chest, I knew it wasn't that simple. Because the bond was still there. Weak, incomplete, but there. Still tying me to him. Still making it physically painful to consider leaving. Still whispering that maybe, maybe, maybe. The moon goddess had a cruel sense of humor, pairing me with someone who would never want me, but making it impossible for me to truly let him go. I finished cleaning the kitchen. Began prep for lunch. Went through the motions because that's what I did. That's all I did. But something had shifted. Some fundamental part of me had changed in the past 24 hours. I couldn't keep doing this. Couldn't keep living like this. Couldn't keep breaking my own heart every single day. Something had to change. I just didn't know what.
Or how.
All I knew was that I couldn't keep being the invisible mate. The forgotten girl. The one who cooked his meals and laundered his sheets and pretended not to smell other women on him. I deserved more than this.
Didn't I?
The problem was, after 3 years of being treated like I deserved nothing, I wasn't sure anymore. I wasn't sure of anything except that this pain, this constant, relentless, grinding pain, it was going to kill me. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But eventually. And maybe that would be a mercy. I smelled them on him. And it nearly destroyed me. But here's what I was about to learn. Sometimes destruction is just preparation for reconstruction. Sometimes you have to break completely before you can rebuild into something stronger. And sometimes the universe has to push you to your absolute limit before it finally gives you what you need. I just didn't know that yet. All I knew was pain. And anger. And the scent of another woman on my mate. But tonight would be different. Tonight, everything would change. I just had to survive until then. Episode 4. The Drunken Night. This is where everything changed. I want you to pay attention now. Really pay attention. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's the moment. The turning point. The night that took 3 years of suffering and transformed it into something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something powerful. Something that finally made him see me. It was late. 3 a.m, maybe later. I couldn't sleep again. Hadn't really slept properly in days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them.
Smelled them.
Felt the bond ache with his desire for someone else. So, I was in the kitchen. Because where else would I be? I was making pastries for the morning. The repetitive motion of folding dough was meditative. Soothing. It gave my hands something to do, and my mind something to focus on besides the constant, gnawing pain. The pack house was silent. Dead silent. That particular quality of silence that only exists in the deepest hours of night when the world feels paused. Held breath. I didn't hear him coming. Didn't sense him through the bond. It was too weak for that, too incomplete. I just suddenly knew. That prickling awareness at the back of my neck. That shift in the air. I turned. And there he was. Standing in the doorway of the kitchen. Swaying slightly. His shirt was half unbuttoned, hanging open. His hair was a mess. His eyes were unfocused. He was drunk. I'd never seen him drunk before. In 3 years, I'd never seen Alpha King Damien Blackthorne anything less than completely in control. But tonight, he could barely stand straight. Alpha. My voice came out uncertain, worried despite myself.
He blinked at me, slowly.
Like he was having trouble processing what he was seeing. Elena, he slurred my name. You're always here. Why are you always here? I didn't know how to answer that. Because I lived here? Because I worked here? Because I had nowhere else to go? Because he'd made sure I had nothing except this kitchen? I'm making pastries for the morning, I said instead. Neutral. Safe. He laughed. But it wasn't a happy sound. It was bitter. Broken. Pastries. Of course. Always taking care of everyone. He moved into the kitchen, stumbling. I moved instinctively to steady him when he wobbled, but he waved me off. I'm fine, he muttered. Perfectly fine.
He was not fine.
He slumped against the counter, ran his hands through his hair. And when he looked at me again, there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before.
Pain.
Raw, unfiltered pain. Do you know, he said, his words slurring together. Do you know what it's like to feel empty? To have everything and feel nothing? My heart clenched. I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I'm the Alpha King, he continued. I have power.
Respect. Fear.
Loyalty. Everything an alpha could want. But I can't.
He stopped.
Shook his head. I can't feel it.
The bond.
It's there, I know it's there, but it's like trying to hear a whisper through a wall.
He was talking about me.
About us. About the bond that should have connected us but didn't. Why, he asked, and his voice cracked. Why won't it ignite? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with us? The questions I'd asked myself 1,000 times. Hearing them from his mouth was surreal. Devastating. I don't know, I whispered. He laughed again. That same bitter sound. Of course you don't. Nobody knows. The pack elders don't know. The moon priestess doesn't know. Even the moon goddess herself seems to have no fucking idea. I'd never heard him swear before. I've tried everything, he said. Tried to ignore it. Tried to move on. Tried to find something, someone, anything that would make me feel anything. But it's all nothing. Empty. Meaningless. He was talking about the other women. The lovers. The substitutes. And despite everything, despite 3 years of pain and rejection and being invisible, my stupid, stubborn heart ached for him. Because I understood. I understood exactly what he meant. I can feel you sometimes, he said, quieter now. Late at night. I can feel this pull, this need. But it's so faint.
So distant.
And I don't know how to reach it. How to reach you.
He looked at me then.
Really looked at me. And his eyes were clear for just a moment. Focused. Intense. I need you, he whispered. 3 words. 3 simple words that I'd been waiting 3 years to hear. But they came out wrong. Desperate. Broken. Not the declaration of a mate claiming his other half, but the confession of a man at the end of his rope. You're drunk, I said. Because I had to say something. Had to remind myself that this wasn't real. That drunk words were just words. That tomorrow he'd wake up and regret this and go back to treating me like furniture. I am, he agreed. Very drunk. Had to be. Had to be drunk enough to finally say it. To finally admit. He moved toward me. Sudden. Unsteady. I should have backed away. Should have maintained the distance we'd kept for 3 years. But I didn't. I couldn't. And then his hands were on my face. Rough. Calloused. Warm. His hands were touching me. For the first time in 3 years, he was touching me. I'm sorry, he breathed. I'm so sorry. For all of it. For 3 years of being a coward. Of being afraid. Of not knowing what to do with you. His forehead dropped to mine. And I could smell the alcohol on his breath, mixed with his scent. Pine and smoke and something uniquely him. No perfume this time. No other woman. Just him. Please, he whispered. Please help me understand. Help me feel what I'm supposed to feel. Help me. He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he kissed me. And the world exploded. The bond. The weak, incomplete, pathetic bond that had been barely a whisper for 3 years. It roared to life. Like a wildfire catching. Like a lightning strike. Like everything that had been dormant, suddenly waking up all at once. I felt him. Truly felt him. His emotions pouring into me through the bond. His desperation. His pain. His loneliness. His need. 3 years of repressed emotion hitting me all at once. And underneath it all, recognition. His wolf finally recognizing my wolf. The kiss deepened. His hands moved from my face to my waist, pulling me closer. And I kissed him back. God help me, I kissed him back. 3 years of longing.
3 years of wanting.
3 years of dreaming about this moment. And it was happening. He was rough. Desperate. His hands were everywhere, my hair, my back, my hips. Like he couldn't get enough. Like he was trying to make up for 3 years in 3 minutes. I should have stopped it. Should have pushed him away. Should have remembered that he was drunk, that this wasn't real, that tomorrow would bring nothing but regret. But the bond was singing. My wolf was howling with joy. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt whole. Felt wanted. Felt seen. He walked me backward until I hit the counter. Lifted me onto it. His mouth never leaving mine. His hands gripping my thighs. Mine, he growled against my lips. You're mine. And something in me shattered and reassembled all at once. Because yes, I was his. I'd been his for 3 years. Waiting. Hoping. Dying slowly in the shadows. But now he was finally claiming it. Finally claiming me. His mouth moved to my neck. To the spot where a mate's mark should be. And I felt his canines extend. The mark. He was going to mark me. Finally. And just like that, the bond ignited. Fully. Completely. Irrevocably. It was like being struck by lightning. Like every nerve ending in my body suddenly connected to his. I could feel everything. His heartbeat matching mine. His desire. His need. His wolf calling to my wolf. And underneath it all, something else. Something that had been missing for 3 years.
Love.
Buried deep. Complicated.
Confused. But there.
He'd loved me all along and hadn't known how to access it. The incomplete bond had locked it away. Made it impossible for him to feel what he should have felt. But now it was flooding through. Overwhelming. Devastating.
Perfect.
Elena, he breathed against my neck. And the way he said my name, like a prayer, like a plea, like the answer to every question he'd ever asked, it broke me and healed me simultaneously. And then his canines pierced my skin. The marking. The bite that would bind us completely. Permanently. Irrevocably. Pain and pleasure mixed until I couldn't tell them apart. The bond cemented itself. Solidified. Became unbreakable. I felt everything he felt. And he felt everything I felt. 3 years of pain. 3 years of rejection. 3 years of suffering. He felt it all. And he collapsed against me, his body shaking. Oh God, he choked out. Oh God, what have I done? What have I done to you? The full weight of 3 years of casual cruelty hit him all at once. Through the bond. Unfiltered. Undeniable. My pain became his pain. And it brought him to his knees. Literally. He slid down until he was kneeling on the kitchen floor, his arms wrapped around my waist, his face pressed against my stomach. And Alpha King Damien Blackthorn, the most powerful alpha in 5 territories, he wept. I'm sorry, he kept saying. Over and over. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to process what had just happened. The bond was overwhelming. His emotions mixing with mine until I couldn't tell where he ended and I began. But underneath it all was this truth. It had finally happened. The bond had ignited. He'd marked me. I was his. Truly, completely his. And he was mine. After 3 years of waiting, of hoping, of suffering, it had finally happened. But the question was, what now? Because drunk confessions and desperate kisses didn't erase 3 years of pain. A mark didn't fix what was broken. The bond being complete didn't mean we were. I looked down at him. At this powerful alpha reduced to tears on my kitchen floor. At my mate who'd finally claimed me, but only because alcohol had lowered his inhibitions enough to let him. And I felt complicated. Relief.
Joy.
Anger.
Fear. Love.
Resentment. Everything all at once. You should go to bed, I said quietly. Sleep it off. We'll talk in the morning. He looked up at me.
His eyes red.
His face devastated. Don't leave me, he said.
Please.
I've already left you alone for 3 years. Don't make me be alone tonight. And despite everything, despite my anger and my hurt and my confusion, I couldn't say no. Because he was my mate. And the bond, now complete, wouldn't let me abandon him. So I helped him up. Let him lean on me. Walked him to his room. Our room now. Technically, since he'd marked me. I laid him on the bed. He grabbed my hand before I could pull away. Stay, he pleaded. Please stay. So I stayed. I lay beside him on top of the covers, his hand clutching mine, the bond humming between us. And I watched him fall asleep. Watched the Alpha King who'd ignored me for 3 years finally rest peacefully because I was near. The irony wasn't lost on me. When his breathing evened out, when I was sure he was deeply asleep, I touched the mark on my neck. His mark. It was real. It had really happened. Everything had changed. And I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. But for tonight, for this one night, I let myself feel it. Feel the bond. Feel the connection. Feel wanted. Feel chosen. Even if it had taken 3 years and a bottle of whiskey to get here. Even if I had no idea if he'd regret it in the morning. Even if everything was complicated and messy and broken. For tonight, I was his mate. And he was mine.
And that was enough.
It had to be enough. Because I'd been surviving on crumbs for 3 years. And this was a feast. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. The morning light was filtering through the curtains of his room. Our room, when he woke. I'd been awake for hours, lying beside him, too afraid to move, too afraid to breathe, too afraid that if I did anything at all, this would turn out to be a dream. But the mark on my neck throbbed. A constant, undeniable reminder that it had been real. All of it. I felt the exact moment he woke up. The bond let me feel it, his consciousness returning, his awareness sharpening, his memories flooding back. His eyes opened, focused on the ceiling for a moment. And then he felt it too. The bond. Complete. Singing between us like a living thing. He went absolutely still. I could feel his emotions through the connection now. Confusion. Disbelief. And then, slowly, like sunrise breaking, understanding. He turned his head. Looked at me. Really looked at me. And this is what I mean when I say he saw me for the first time. His eyes weren't glazed with indifference. They weren't clouded with regret or obligation. They weren't looking through me like I was invisible. They were seeing me. Elena. His mate. The girl who'd been waiting for 3 years. You're my mate, he said. The same words he'd said 3 years ago. But they sounded completely different now. 3 years ago, they'd been an accusation. A problem to solve.
Now?
Now they sounded like a revelation. A gift. A miracle he hadn't known he was waiting for. Yes, I whispered. He reached up, touched my neck where his mark lay. His fingers trembled. I marked you. Yes. The bond, it's complete. Yes. He closed his eyes. And through the bond, I felt it hit him. All of it. The full weight of 3 years of casual cruelty. Of treating his mate like a servant. Of ignoring the gift the moon goddess had given him. Oh, Elena, he breathed. What have I done? He sat up abruptly. Ran his hands through his hair. His emotions were chaotic, pouring through the bond. Regret, shame, anger at himself, wonder at the connection, desire, fear, love. So much love. It had been there all along, I realized. Locked away behind the incomplete bond. unable to surface. But it had existed, growing in the dark, waiting for the chance to bloom. And now that the bond was complete, now that it could flow freely, it was overwhelming. For both of us. I can feel you, he said, his voice full of awe. I can feel everything. Your pain. Your, God, 3 years of pain. He turned to me, and there were tears in his eyes. Alpha King Damien Blackthorne was crying. Again. Sober this time. I hurt you, he said. Every single day for 3 years I hurt you. I felt it last night when the bond completed, but I thought maybe I was drunk. Maybe I was imagining how bad it was. But I wasn't. It's all there. Every moment of suffering. Every rejection. Every time I walked past you like you didn't exist. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort him. The bond was pulling me toward him, urging me to soothe his distress. But another part of me, the part that had been hardened by 3 years of survival, that part wasn't ready to forgive. Yes, I said simply. You hurt me. He flinched like I'd struck him. I don't know how to fix this, he said. I don't know how to make it right. 3 years, Elena. I wasted 3 years. We wasted 3 years, I corrected. The bond should have completed the first day. Something was wrong. Something blocked it. He shook his head.
No.
I could feel the whisper of it. From the beginning, I could feel it. It was faint, but it was there. I chose to ignore it. Chose to focus on what was missing instead of nurturing what was there. I chose wrong. Over and over for 3 years, I chose wrong. The honesty was brutal, painful, but I appreciated it. At least he wasn't making excuses.
Why? I asked.
The question I'd been holding for 3 years. Why did you push me away? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw.
Fear, he said.
Pure, pathetic fear. You weren't what I expected. What I'd been prepared for. I was supposed to mate with someone powerful. Someone with connections. Someone who could strengthen the pack politically. That's what I'd been taught my whole life. What I'd been groomed for. He looked at me. And then the moon goddess gave me you. An orphan. An omega. A girl with no pack, no power, no political value. And I didn't know what to do with that. Didn't know how to reconcile what I'd been taught I needed with what I actually needed. So, you put me in the kitchen. So, I put you in the kitchen, he agreed. His voice was thick with shame. I told myself I was being practical. That until the bond fully manifested, you needed a role. A purpose. I told myself a lot of things to justify treating you like you didn't matter. I cooked your meals for 3 years, I said. My voice was steady, but the bond carried the weight of my pain. I learned your preferences. Your habits. I knew you better than anyone. And you never once thanked me. I know. You took lovers. He flinched again. I know. I could smell them on you. Every time. The bond might have been weak, but it was strong enough for that. Strong enough to make me feel every betrayal. I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't erase 3 years. No, he agreed. It doesn't. Nothing can. But Elena, he reached for my hand. Hesitated. May I? The fact that he asked that he didn't just take, it meant something. I gave him my hand. His fingers laced with mine, and the bond flared. The physical contact amplified it. I could feel his sincerity, his remorse, his desperate need for forgiveness. But I could also feel his love. Raw and powerful and all-consuming. He loved me. My mate loved me. And I loved him too. I'd loved him for 3 years. Through all the pain. Through all the rejection. Through everything. The bond had kept me tethered to him, yes. But it was more than that. Somewhere along the way, I'd fallen in love with the man I glimpsed in quiet moments. The king who carried the weight of thousands of lives. The leader who made impossible decisions. The wolf who stood alone under the moon at night, searching for something he couldn't name. I'd loved him even when he didn't deserve it. Even when he didn't want it. Even when it was killing me. I love you, he said. And through the bond, I knew it was true. Undeniably, completely true. I've loved you all along. I just couldn't access it. Couldn't feel it. The incomplete bond. It locked everything away. But it was there. And now that I can feel it, now that I can feel you, Elena, it's overwhelming. You're everything. You're my mate. My other half. Stop.
He stopped.
I pulled my hand back. Stood up. Put distance between us. You love me, I said.
Fine.
I believe you. The bond doesn't lie. But love isn't enough. Not after what you did. Not after 3 years of being invisible. His face fell. Through the bond, I felt his devastation. What are you saying? I'm saying that you're my mate. That's a fact. The bond is complete. That's a fact. You marked me, and I can feel your emotions, and I know you love me. All facts. I touched the mark on my neck. But none of that means I have to accept this. Accept us. Not right away. Not without you proving that you actually want me. That you actually choose me. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You want me to court you. I want you to show me that I matter. That I'm more than just the bond. More than just fate's choice. I want you to choose me because you want to, not because the bond finally lit up and gave you no other option. He stood.
Moved toward me.
Stopped when I held up my hand. Do you have any idea, he said quietly, how remarkable you are? I blinked. 3 years of suffering. 3 years of pain. And you didn't break. Didn't leave. Didn't let it destroy you. You became the best cook in 5 territories. You ran the entire kitchen operation. You made yourself indispensable. You survived. His eyes were intense.
Proud.
And now, when most people would be clinging to the bond, desperate for the love they'd been denied, you're standing there demanding more. Demanding better. Demanding to be chosen. He smiled.
Small. Sad.
Beautiful. You're incredible. And I've been a fool not to see it. My throat tightened. Pretty words. True words, he corrected. And I'm going to prove it. Every day. For as long as it takes. I'm going to show you that you matter. That you're not just my mate, you're my choice. My queen. My everything.
I'm not a queen, I said.
I'm a cook. You're my mate, he said firmly. Which makes you my Luna. My queen. Whether you've been acting in that role or not. Whether I've been treating you like it or not. That's what you are. What you've always been. The bond pulsed with his conviction. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows it, he continued. The pack. The territories. Everyone. You're not going to be invisible anymore, Elena. You're going to shine. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But 3 years of disappointment had taught me to be cautious.
Prove it, I said.
You want me? Truly want me? Prove it. I will.
Good.
I moved toward the door. I need to go to the kitchen. Breakfast.
No.
I turned. He was closer than I thought. Right behind me. The bond made me hyper-aware of his proximity. His scent. His warmth. No more kitchen, he said. Not like before. You're not staff anymore, Elena. You're my mate. My Luna. You don't serve breakfast. You eat it. At the head table. With me. My heart skipped. The pack. The pack will be informed.
Today.
This morning. There will be an official announcement. 3 years late, but it's happening. He reached up, gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The simple touch sent electricity through the bond. You've been hidden long enough, he said softly. It's time for the world to know who you are.
What you mean to me.
I searched his eyes, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for any sign that this was temporary, that once the newness of the complete bond wore off, he'd regret it. But all I saw was certainty. And love. So much love it took my breath away. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Make your announcement.
Tell the pack.
But Damien, I used his name for the first time. This doesn't mean I forgive you. This doesn't mean we're okay. This just means I'm willing to let you try. That's all I ask. He smiled. A chance. That's all I need. Through the bond, I felt his determination, his resolve, his absolute certainty that he would win me over. And despite everything, despite my hurt and my anger and my carefully constructed walls, I felt something else.
Hope.
Real hope. Not the desperate, pathetic hope I'd clung to for 3 years, but genuine, solid hope that maybe this could work. That maybe we could work. I need to get dressed, I said. If I'm going to be presented as Luna, I can't wear my kitchen clothes. I'll have clothes sent to your room. Anything you need. My room? He hesitated. Unless, would you prefer to move into the Luna's chambers? With me? I thought about it. About sharing his space, his bed, his life. The bond wanted it, craved it, pulled me toward him. But I wasn't ready.
My room, I said. For now.
Until I've earned it, he finished. I understand. He did. Through the bond, I felt his acceptance, his patience, his willingness to wait.
Thank you, I said.
For what? For not assuming, for asking, for trying. He cupped my face gently, leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't pull away. His lips met mine.
Soft, sweet.
Nothing like the desperate, drunken kiss from last night. This was a promise, a commitment, a beginning. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm. Go get ready, he said. In 1 hour, I'm introducing you to the pack as their Luna. And Elena. Yes, everything changes today. Everything. I'm done wasting time. I'm done being a coward. Starting now, you're my priority. My partner. My equal. We'll see, I said. But I smiled. And through the bond, he felt my hope. It made him smile too. I left his room, walked down the hallway toward my own, and touched the mark on my neck. Everything had changed last night. But today it became real. Today the world would know. I wasn't just the cook anymore. I was the Luna. And my alpha had finally chosen me. Now, I just had to decide if I could choose him back. The bond said yes.
My heart said maybe.
My head said be careful. And all of me said, this is only the beginning. Because the truth the bond had revealed wasn't just that he loved me. It was that I had power too. The power to accept or reject. The power to forgive or hold on to hurt. The power to shape what came next. For 3 years, I'd been powerless. Not anymore. The bond had lit up. And so had the truth. We were equals now. And he was going to have to prove, every single day, that he understood that. I smiled to myself as I reached my room. Let the courting begin. Episode 6. You want me now? Prove it. He thinks one night can erase 3 years of pain?
No.
The announcement happened exactly 1 hour later, just like he promised. The entire pack was summoned to the Great Hall. Mandatory attendance. Everyone from the highest-ranked warriors to the newest Omegas. The room was packed, buzzing with speculation. Because Alpha King Damien Blackthorne didn't call emergency assemblies for nothing. I stood in my room, looking at myself in the mirror. The clothes he'd sent were beautiful. A dress, simple but elegant. Deep blue. The color of twilight. It fit perfectly. Someone had also sent jewelry. Nothing ostentatious. Just a silver necklace and matching earrings. And there on my neck, visible above the neckline of the dress, his mark. The proof. The claim. The truth. I touched it gently. It still throbbed. Still sent little shocks of pleasure through me every time I brushed it. A knock on my door. Come in. It was Marcus, the beta. He looked uncomfortable. Nervous. Luna, he said. Then stopped. Corrected himself. I mean Elena. The alpha sent me to escort you.
Luna.
He'd called me Luna. The title I should have had for 3 years. Is the pack assembled? I asked.
Yes.
Everyone's there. They're confused. Speculating. There are rumors flying about what this could be about. Of course there were. I took a deep breath.
Okay.
Let's go. Walking through the pack house felt different. People stopped and stared. Whispered. They'd seen me 1,000 times before. The quiet cook, the invisible girl, but today I looked different. Carried myself differently. Because today, I wasn't just the cook. Today, I was claiming my place. We reached the great hall. The noise was deafening. Hundreds of voices, all talking at once. Then the doors opened, and silence fell. Everyone turned to look. I felt their eyes on me, felt their shock, their confusion, their curiosity. I kept my head high and walked toward the front of the room where Damien stood on the raised platform. His eyes found mine immediately, and through the bond I felt his pride, his admiration, his absolute certainty that I belonged up there with him. I climbed the steps, stood beside him, and for the first time in 3 years, we stood together, publicly,
As mates.
The pack was dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Damien raised his hand, and even that small gesture commanded absolute attention. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he began. His voice carried through the hall. Alpha command. Impossible to ignore. "I've called you here today to make an announcement that is long overdue." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. 3 years ago, Damien continued, the moon goddess blessed me with my mate. More murmurs. Louder this time. Many of you remember that day. Some of you were there. And you've all wondered, I know you have, why there was no ceremony. No celebration. No official recognition. He paused. The truth is complicated. The bond between Elena and myself did not fully manifest immediately. It was incomplete.
Weak.
And his voice tightened. I handled it poorly. I let fear and expectation cloud my judgment. I failed to honor the gift I'd been given. The pack was riveted, hanging on every word. But last night, he said, and his hand found mine. The bond completed. Fully. Irrevocably. And I marked my mate.
Gasps.
Excited chatter. Elena Frost is my mate. My Luna. Your queen. And she has been for 3 years, whether I treated her as such or not.
He turned to me.
Looked at me with those storm-gray eyes that finally saw me. I stand before you all today to formally acknowledge what should have been acknowledged 3 years ago. Elena is my other half. My partner. My equal. And from this day forward, she will be treated with the respect and honor that position demands. The pack erupted. Some in cheers. Some in shock. Some in whispers. But Damien wasn't done. I know many of you have questions. Many of you have seen Elena working in the kitchen, serving meals, taking orders. And you've wondered why the Alpha's mate was doing such work. He paused. Let the silence build. The answer is simple. I was a fool. I let prejudice and expectation blind me to the treasure right in front of me. I relegated my mate, my Luna, to a position beneath her station because I didn't have the courage to claim her properly. His voice rang with self-condemnation.
Public.
Honest. Brutal. But that ends now. Elena is no longer kitchen staff. She is your Luna. She speaks with my authority.
Her word is law.
And anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. Alpha command washed over the room. A promise. A threat. A decree. Do you understand? Yes, Alpha. The response was thunderous. Unified. Damien turned to me. Went down on one knee. The pack gasped. The Alpha King. On his knees. In front of everyone. Elena, he said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. I have wronged you.
Deeply.
For 3 years, I have failed in my duty as your mate. I have caused you pain and suffering. I have been unworthy of the gift the moon goddess gave me. Through the bond, I felt his sincerity, his shame, his determination. I cannot change the past, but I can change the future. So I kneel before you, before our pack, and I make this vow. From this day forward, you are my priority, my partner, my queen. I will spend every day proving that you matter, that you are valued, that you are loved. Tears pricked my eyes. I will court you properly, honor you publicly, cherish you privately, and I will earn your forgiveness, however long it takes. He pulled out a box, opened it. Inside was a ring. Simple, beautiful, a moonstone set in silver. This belonged to my mother, he said quietly. It's been passed down through the Alpha line for generations. It's meant for the Luna.
For you. He took my hand.
Will you wear it? Not as acceptance. Not as forgiveness. Just as possibility. As hope that maybe, someday, I can be the mate you deserve. The pack was completely silent. Watching. Waiting. I looked down at him. At this powerful alpha on his knees before me. At the man who'd hurt me but was now offering everything.
The bond sang.
Urged me to say yes. My heart whispered caution. But my soul knew the truth. Yes, I said quietly. I'll wear it. The pack exploded in cheers. Damien slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. The moonstone caught the light, seeming to glow from within.
He stood.
And without asking, without assuming, he simply looked at me. A question in his eyes. I nodded. And he kissed me. In front of the entire pack. A claiming. A declaration. A promise. When we pulled apart, the cheering was deafening. I was dizzy. Overwhelmed. The bond was flooded with emotions, his, mine, ours. Joy and hope and love and fear and uncertainty all mixed together. But underneath it all was something solid. Choice. I had chosen to say yes. To give him a chance. To accept the possibility of us. And he would have to prove every single day that my choice was right. The celebration went late into the night. There was food, music, dancing. The pack was ecstatic. Many came to congratulate me, to apologize for not seeing me before, to welcome me properly as their Luna. Hannah, one of the Omega girls who'd been kind to me over the years, hugged me tight. I always knew, she whispered. I always knew you were special. Martha, the old cook, had tears in her eyes. You deserved this 3 years ago, she said fiercely. But you deserve it now too. Be the Luna they need. Be the queen I know you can be. Even Marcus approached, bowing formally. Luna, he said. I apologize for my part in how you were treated. I should have spoken up. Should have questioned the Alpha's decisions. I failed you. I shook my head. You were following your Alpha. I don't blame you.
Still, he said.
From now on, you have my loyalty. Completely. Through the bond, I felt Damien watching. Felt his approval of how I was handling everything. Felt his pride in me. But I also felt his uncertainty. His fear that this was all too little, too late. The party eventually wound down. People drifted off to their homes. The hall emptied. Until it was just us. Me and Damien. Alone in the great hall where he'd first told me I was his mate 3 years ago. You did well tonight, he said softly. So did you. I meant what I said. Every word. I know. I felt it through the bond. He smiled.
Sad.
Hopeful. I don't expect you to move into my chambers yet. I know I need to earn that. But Elena, he stepped closer. Can I at least walk you to your room? Can I have that much?
Such a simple request. Such a normal thing for mates.
But for us, it was monumental. Yes, I said. We walked through the quiet pack house. His hand found mine. Our fingers intertwined. The ring on my finger caught the moonlight streaming through the windows. When we reached my door, he stopped.
Thank you, he said.
For giving me a chance. For not running. For being stronger than I ever was. I'm not doing this for you, I said honestly. I'm doing this for me. Because I need to know if this can work. If we can work. Fair enough. And, Damien, you're going to have to fight for me. Really fight. This isn't going to be easy.
I'm
not going to just forget 3 years of pain because the bond is complete now. I know. I'm going to test you. Challenge you. Make you prove every single day that I matter. I wouldn't expect anything less. Good. I started to open my door, but he gently caught my arm. One more thing. What? I love you. I know I said it this morning, but I need to say it again. I love you, Elena. I've wasted 3 years not saying it.
Not showing it.
So I'm going to say it constantly now until you believe it. Until you feel it in your bones. Through the bond, his love washed over me.
Warm. Real.
Undeniable. I love you too, I admitted. I have for a while. Even when I shouldn't have. Even when it hurt. His eyes widened. You do. The bond doesn't lie. He laughed.
Soft.
Joyful.
No.
It doesn't. But love isn't enough. I know. Trust is what we need.
Respect. Partnership.
And I'm going to give you all of that. We'll see. He leaned in slowly.
Kissed my forehead.
Gentle. Reverent. Good night, my Luna. Good night, Alpha. I slipped into my room and closed the door. Leaned against it and touched the mark on my neck. The ring on my finger. Today had been surreal. Overwhelming. World-changing. I'd gone from invisible cook to acknowledged Luna in a matter of hours. But I wasn't naive. Words were easy. Promises were easy. Even public declarations were easy when the bond was singing and emotions were high. The real test would come tomorrow. And the next day. And the day after that. Would he actually follow through? Would he actually treat me as equal? Would he actually choose me every single day? Or would the novelty wear off? Would old habits resurface? Would he revert to the alpha king who'd put me in the kitchen and forgotten I existed? I didn't know. But I was willing to find out. Because despite everything, despite the pain and the hurt and the 3 years of suffering, I wanted this to work. Wanted us to work. So I'd give him his chance. Let him prove himself. Let him fight for me. And if he did, if he really, truly showed me that I mattered, then maybe, just maybe, we could build something beautiful out of the broken pieces. But he was going to have to earn it.
Every
single
day.
You want me now? Prove it. Show me I'm not just your mate. Show me I'm your choice. Your partner. Your equal. Your everything. Prove it. And maybe, just maybe, I'll let myself believe. Let myself hope. Let myself love you the way the moon goddess intended. But you have to prove it first. And Alpha King Damien Blackthorn? You better not fail. Because I'm not the broken girl in the kitchen anymore. I'm the Luna. And I know my worth now. So prove that you know it too.